Okay, we are now live.
All righty. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Middleton Airport Commission meeting, October 9th, 2025. Brian, let's call to order.
Okay, Commissioner Young,
I'm here.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Present.
Commissioner Randall,
Muted.
Commissioner Randall, Commissioner Myers,
Present.
Commissioner Rubin,
Here.
Commissioner Randall, can you hear me?
Okay.
And Chair Norman.
Yep, here.
Yeah.
Maybe we can, I can text Commissioner Randall to,
Oh,
Carl, can
Commissioner
you hear
Randall.
us? Carl, can you hear us? I'll just let her know. We can't hear you. Hear you. Okay. See if she gets that. All right, and we have a quorum, so we're good to go. Oh, and Commissioner Nye is here.
Commissioner Nye, can you indicate present? Okay, we have a quorum.
All righty, thank you. Okay, everybody. Proof of posting.
Yes, the agenda was posted at City Hall and at the airport and on the city's website and listservs.
All righty. Public comment. We'll have some public comment if anybody would like to
Dave,
speak up.
can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. Are you present at this meeting?
Why don't
Yes.
I see Dave?
Okay. All right. Public comment, limited to 3 minutes. If anybody would like to speak, please identify yourself. You can just speak up now or raise your hand. Brian Gatto will make note.
I'm not
Oh.
seeing anybody raise their virtual hand at the moment.
Okay. And Brian, you have received some public comment in writing, and that has been submitted.
Yep.
Okay, we appreciate that. All right. Approval of the minutes. I've reviewed the minutes. I don't have any comments to add. Does any of the commission members have anything they'd like to report or update on our minutes? Nope. All right. I'll accept the minutes as submitted. We'll start out with chair report, and I will immediately turn it over to Brian. I think, Brian, if you'd give the commission an update of what you know and where we're at with an ALP.
Sure. So as you know, our ALP has been approved by the city a couple years ago. It's been kind of in the queue for FAA review and approval. It has been formally submitted to them with some modifications to remove the RPZ that's on the southern end of the property and relocate it solely onto airport property. The mechanism that the FAA is going to require to do that is to shorten the grass turf runway by a couple 100 feet to get that RPZ fully off those parcels. So that's the information that's been submitted to the FAA. It's under review by their, I believe it's their business lines division, and it is even in the midst of the federal government shutdown. There are FAA employees that are reviewing that proposal, and we expect to hear back from them probably within the next week or so. So I'll let the commission know at our next meeting when that ALP has been approved.
Great, thank you very much. That's enormously encouraging. I don't have any substantial updates other than a little bit of industry and kind of political updates in the world of aviation. I can just run down quickly. I've noted was brought to my attention. The state of Michigan has rounded up somewhere over $2.5 million, and they're rolling out a charging infrastructure system at some of their general aviation airports. So we're not the only ones thinking about that, obviously. Um, the FAA has taken on a renewed initiative through executive order that is really pushing for development and continued development in the eVTOL space, basically electrical, vertical, and takeoff aircraft, and drone development. And it's interesting, there's some policy development around that. Part 108, a new sub-development of regulations. Basically, they just wrapped up a comment period where they want to know really about beyond visual line of sight. Now, the current drone operations are under a Part 107, and these kind of drones, whether they're for recreational hobby or for commercial use, primarily must always operate under what's called simply line of sight. So if you're the pilot, whether you're private or commercial, the device can't ever be out of your line of sight. So, bottom line is um, the airspace below 400 feet is going to be used heavily and become congested for commercial and or private and or recreational use. And the FAA is working on policy development in that area. Another very interesting piece that came up in there is an electronic identification device, which could be in aircraft, kind of almost I don't want to say replacing, a supplement to ADSB out. As you all know, and for those who don't know, ADSB systems in aircraft simply allow the aircraft to transmit who they are and where they are and how high they are. And they want to look at adopting another device that would be on board aircraft, which would be for very short range. So if an aircraft is flying around and there's a drone maybe operating under Part 108, it would simply see the aircraft and avoid the aircraft. The other thing is this type of ID device would also be able to be used for short range public use, to simply know that there's an aircraft in the area, and how high it is and where it is without identifying it by an N number. So we'll see what happens with that. Interesting stuff. The other thing is, just wanted to make note to Brian and Rich, make sure that public events and education and safety events that we have out at the airport are getting published to the BOA. I noticed that the BOA has a public section where they list public events that are taking place at local airports. I looked through that list. It primarily highlights things that are education related, wings events, but also Young Eagle flights, and things that are open to the public. Our summer was a great success. Maury Inc. and Capital Flight both held a variety of events, and I'm very pleased to say that I saw these events published in the city's public calendar as well. So anybody who follows Middleton and goes out to the public events calendar and kind of scrolls through it would have seen the events that were hosted out at the airport. And that's kind of about all I had for my comments. And on to the airport manager's report.
Hey, can everyone hear me? And
Yes.
that's good. Okay. We'll go right into the August manager's report from July 28 through August 29, 2025. 6 individuals made 11 noise or overflight reports. These reports were received via phone or online. Again, no violations of FAA regs were apparent in the reports. The aircraft reported appeared to be following the voluntary noise abatement procedure, as were the pattern altitudes during the overflights. No aircraft accidents or incidents on the field, and we continue to mow. We had a wings event in which Wings Kids to Fly event, 6 young people were given introductions into aviation. The VMC or Visual Meteorological Conditions Club, also essentially a safety seminar, met August 14th. That's through the Experimental Aircraft Association. Willa Brown Academy, in collaboration with Dane County Human Services, hosted an aviation career day here. Event August 21. 16 kids participated. Again, this is all in the Maury conference room. August 25, the Middleton Garden Club met here. 27, a safety seminar with Maury staff. And then let's see, events held in the Maury Maintenance Hangar. We did dream flights. 6 veterans were given flights in a Stearman biplane, a World War II training aircraft, and really are very honored to be able to do that. And one of the veterans, I believe, was over 100 years old. And special events, Capital Flights Aviation and Car Show was held on August 9th. Again, a very successful event. In the future, and I know I've probably skipped a few things here, but we had the Girls in Aviation event, September 20th, Maury Conference Room, 27th, Wings to Fly event, and then 2025 again still marks the 100th anniversary of Howard Maury starting the flight school in the Madison area. August 30 through September 30, 8 individuals made 25 noise or overflight reports. Again, phone, email, or online. 1 individual made 18 reports. No violations of FAA regulations were apparent in these reports. No aircraft accidents or incidents on the field. Mowing again continues. In the conference room, the VMC Club met September 11th. This is pretty much a monthly event. The Wings to Fly Kids Flying event was September 27th, and this time 6 young people attended. Garden Club met again in the hangar. We had a Girls in Aviation career day. It was very well attended. September 20th, close to 100 attended over the day. Very nice to see women in aviation. There were tables set up with various career options, everything from the Guard to ATC to the airlines were not specifically airlines represented, but retired airline people were there and talking, as well as active, and as well as the CFI flight school. So very much very popular event. And the Friends of Charlie 29 held a social event and presentation on flying in New Zealand. That was September 25th. Again, about 25 or 50 attended. Very popular. There'll be expect a Wings to Fly experience coming up the 16th and 17th. Young Eagles flight October 25th. And I believe it's going to be the 22nd. There'll be another Friends of Charlie 29 social event, talking, I believe, about bush flying at this time. Wisconsin Aviation Conference will be held in La Crosse, September 2022. I'll be there, and that pretty much covers it.
Thanks a lot, Rich. Appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions for Rich on his report? I don't see any hands or anybody coming off mute. Fantastic. I'd mentioned to Brian, keep an eye on that conference,
Dave?
Brian. And yes, go ahead.
Technical difficulties. I just had a question for Rich on the Wisconsin Aviation Conference. It said it was September 20 to 22nd. Did you already go to that, or is that?
No, that was
October.
an error. You are correct. It's coming up in a couple of weeks, or October.
October. Okay. All right.
Yeah, my bad.
Sorry.
Okay.
I was going to mention on these types of conferences, there's at least 2 of them. This conference and then the one hosted through the Bureau of Aeronautics. If we could ever have, a staff person maybe in the planning department attend at least like one day of one of those conferences, I don't know, think about it. I just think it would be nice to have a city staff person as well, get some exposure to what's going on in that sector.
Yes, David, they are available for day passes. You don't have to go for the whole thing. And
Yeah,
I will be in
exactly.
attendance for the entire event. Although I do have a charter on the 20th, so I'm going to miss the tour on the riverboat, I believe. But oh well.
Yep. You'll be there for the important stuff. So,
Yes.
yeah. Because now I've had a chance to attend one of those conferences and one BOA conference. And what I learned from those is they're just an outstanding opportunity to literally walk up to anybody who has a BOA name badge on or anybody who has an FAA name badge on and just introduce myself and say where I'm from and what airport I represent and dive right into it and say, hey, what's going on? A little bit of advocacy. So I think those are fantastic events. All righty. No more questions for Rich then? All right. Let's move on to our first discussion and action item, review, discussion, and potential action on the request for proposal for the airport manager's service contract. And Brian, if you would like to start with an introduction on that, if you have any, then we can open it up to the commission for discussion.
Yeah, sure. This is again just a discussion item for the commission. As I mentioned at the last meeting, the current airport manager's contract runs through 2026. So the airport commission and by extension the city council have some options to consider in terms of how they want to proceed with airport management services going forward once this current contract expires in 26. Again, you could utilize an RFP process to review to put out and see what services and what individuals or firms might be interested in submitting for that, or alternatively, the airport commission and council could decide if they wanted to extend the contract with the current vendor, Maury Airplane Company. So I just brought this up for the council for your or for the commission for your discussion and guidance on where to proceed.
Okay. Rich, do you have your hand up for a question?
Yeah, the question I had, and maybe I'll tell you what, you guys go ahead and do your discussion, and then I'll ask the question at the end. It might not be relevant at that point.
Okay. So Brian, tonight you were just looking to get input from us and not really or do you want us to make a decision on moving ahead with an RFP or not?
I mean, if the commission felt they were in a place where they were comfortable giving guidance one way or the other, I think that would be appreciated. If you have more questions or information that you need to make a decision, you can provide, that to me, and we can try to provide that information at a future meeting.
Okay. Gotcha. So from a timeline standpoint, you're okay right now. Okay. I see that Charles would like to start out, and then Kara.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So first, thank you, Matt, for doing the due diligence to make sure that everybody could participate in this discussion before we had it. And I appreciate everybody on the airport commission being willing to postpone this discussion until we were absolutely certain that we could all have it together. My question is just the draft. We have the lobbying clause, and I think we touched on it briefly at our last meeting, but the way it's currently worded, uh, we could inadvertently bump into an applicant at the grocery store, and that would, technically speaking, be contact with that person if we waved hello. So I just want to make sure that we specify in that clause that any potential applicant shouldn't contact us with regard to the contract.
Charles, can you educate me? Lobbying clause?
Yeah,
Is that something here in writing?
yeah, it's in the draft. It's item number 15. It's
Okay,
on the uh
gotcha.
it's the section lobbying. Vendors are not to contract members of the City of Middleton Common Council, mayor, airport commission, or other elected and appointed officials.
Okay, that's what you
Um,
mean. Okay, gotcha. Right.
yeah, and the second sentence I think does indicate what we're going for, which is that um, vendors and applicants they shouldn't lobby us on it. But that first sentence is
Yeah, I think we could just add, maybe suggest to Brian just add with regard to this RFP at the end of that last sentence, and then that in conjunction with the second sentence, I think makes the intent sufficiently clear.
yeah, that works. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you very much, Charles. Tara and then David.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
I wanted to kind of create a context for me around this because I recognize for myself, I see the request for proposal and the airport manager contract, and then we have an FBO, and this is a unique situation that they're connected, but they're not. But I was creating this for me, but maybe also for the airport commissioners is part of the reason why I'm here or why I see airport commissioners here is because we care about the airport, not just now, but also for the future. And I'm just really inspired because I currently am caring for my parents right over the Pheasant Branch Conservancy. And years ago, my parents and a group of people participated with a very visionary mayor to see that the Pheasant Branch Conservancy was of value, and they were really looking far ahead and created that. And every day I'm reminded that decisions made years ago have, well, they have an impact, in the future. And I'm just holding an awareness that this has short-term impact, not just on, Mr. Maury and his business, but on the general usage of the airport right now, and then also the city and their planning down the road in working with both an airport manager contract and an FBO contract. So I'm kind of holding the short-term needs that we see as we look at this, and then I don't want to get ahead of myself and look at the FBO contract as well, but I just wanted to create a context that there's like short-term things that we need to kind of consider, and then look at more the long-term kind of overall planning. And I don't have any specific questions on the RFP itself, but in some ways it feels for me like talking about the FBO contract seems before and what I was going to say. So like I said, if I get ahead of myself, kind of shift that. But I'm looking like short-term timeline around the airport manager contract itself, that we're looking at some expediency in the sense that obviously when this contract is up, regardless if it was, Rich or somebody else, there's continuity. So I feel like tonight it would be important to make some kind of assurance to operations of the airport coming up January. Let's see. I put a lot of thought actually into all of the dynamics here between the two contracts and timing. And I think in looking through all of this, it makes sense to me to have a request for proposal for the airport manager contract. And whether we start that right now or when the next airport manager contract is due, that's something we could certainly discuss. But the reasons why I think it's important is that at some point, Rich will not be the airport manager. And, whether it's sooner rather than later, I think the city needs to look ahead at other options. And I think one of the great ways to do that is find out what's out there. And even if we did a request for proposal now for this upcoming one, and it turns out that obviously the best way because of timing and finances and whatever is to continue, with with Rich, it would be nice to know if there's other people that are even out there that are interested. If so, what would the rate be? Because I understand that we have the city and Rich have had a great opportunity to keep costs low by the relationship with the FBO and the airport manager being the same person. So on a cost perspective, that's an advantage, but down the road that's going to shift. At some point, if someone is an airport manager and it's not Rich, they're going to want a salary. And the city, I believe, needs to think about, well, what would that salary be that is on top of the operational expenses, and need to plan for it if something were to happen suddenly, or if for some reason Rich would decide, I don't want the airport manager contract, I want to focus on my business and my future and where I'm going, then somehow the city would need to budget for an additional cost if that's what was coming through on the request for proposals. So I'm just throwing it out there that I think it's beneficial. I did see the correspondence from Mr. Holfelt from Cap Flight, and I think his points actually are really useful to consider about considering having a neutral, dedicated manager to work. There are a couple businesses on the field. It may reduce load for whoever the FBO person is down the road. There are some points in here that I think are worth considering. I also think, again, along the timeline, that we need to keep an eye on making sure we have smooth operation, the best fit right now, but also planning for when there'll be a transition down the road for whatever reason. And I, there's budgets, and to really start giving some time to the city so they're not surprised by anything, and then we're stuck with, okay, how do we potentially pay for it? Because now all we have that are applying is not in the budget that we've had planned. So those are just some of the thoughts that I wanted to throw out there, at least about the RFP and the airport manager's contract. I think that's all I had.
Thanks. That's excellent. Brian is documenting those high points.
Oh, and there's one thing I wanted to say. I did want to acknowledge Brian for doing the work behind the scenes to come up with a draft. This is not my forte, and so it's nice to have a draft for people who do have more expertise to take a look at it, and including other professionals such as the owner of the FBO and the SASO currently. Like, what would they like to see as an airport manager? And let's say as a succession, what would Rich like to see as part of his legacy as an airport manager being there? All of that I think is valid. And I just want to thank you, Brian, for just doing the work and put this out there. I'm done.
Thank you very much. David.
Yeah, thank you. I don't disagree with anything that Kara said. My concern is the timing of it to get it right. I did look at both the RFP proposal for manager as well as the current FBO proposal. There's a list on page 55 of what was sent out to us that attempts to list the distinction between the responsibilities between airport manager and fixed base operator. And I don't want to be critical of that list, but my reading of the contracts is that it is very incomplete and there are significant overlaps. My reading of those documents, both the airport manager agreement and the fixed base operator agreement, call for each of those entities to be doing snow removal, to be doing maintenance, to be doing painting of interior, to be doing painting of exterior, to be maintaining all those things. And so as far as I can see, and that's just a cursory initial reading of it. So and not to belabor the issue, needs a lot more work, and we really need to decide, or whoever is appropriate to decide what the manager does and what the FBO does needs to be thought out more thoroughly so that you have some valid contracts, because these two contracts at best are ambiguous and at worst are totally contradictory to each other, particularly if it's someone other than the one person having both of those contracts. So I'd love to see an RFP. I'd love to see a manager contract. I'd love to see a separate FBO contract. But in the form they're in right now, I could not vote or agree that they're appropriate to put forth.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Rich, you were next. And you muted, Rich.
Got it. All right. A couple points that I'd like to make. Now, David, I'm not sure. I'd have to review both of those contracts, but the FBO is tasked with maintaining the terminal building and keeping the area snow cleared and the rest. That's my interpretation of the FBO agreement as opposed to the airport itself. Now, I'll have to take a look at that because honestly, you have a much keener legal mind than I certainly do. Well, I have to tell you, not to interrupt you, but like I say, mine was a cursory review in preparation of this meeting. And it just seemed to me in that cursory review that there was enough ambiguity as to what was being said about who's removing snow and who's doing what maintenance. But yeah, so I don't hold myself out as to have anything other than having looked at it and seen enough that there's some confusion there that I believe needs to be clarified. You know, I don't doubt that there is, sir. I'm just saying that the interpretation I've always had, much like a hangar owner, you're responsible for removing the snow from the last 3 feet of your door, as well as not the taxiway, but your sidewalk and such. So there is some responsibility. The FBO is not responsible for doing that, neither is the airport manager. The thing that I think kind of bothers me about this whole RPC idea, RPZ, whatever it is, a proposal, is you don't put down the current conditions. You don't say, okay, is anyone else willing to do this for what Maury Airplane Company is willing to do this? There's nothing said about what the costs would be. Now, if you're willing to pay someone more than what I'm charging you to do what I'm doing, I'd be happy to be part of that. But what has worked in the past for, I think, both the city very well financially as well as Maury Airplane Company is we do the work, somewhat legacy from my father, but we do that work as at our cost because we are also operating out here with only paying the land lease and then the rent of the building. There is no charge for us to operate here. Neither is there a charge for Capital Flight to operate or any of the other businesses that might be here to operate from the city. Now, if you put putting out this proposal assumes that you're not happy with what's happening right now. Obviously, you wouldn't put a proposal out unless you're willing to replace the current operator. And that has not been the case. I think there's one person that's brought this up, and the rest of the review process that we've gone through there's never been an issue that I'm aware of. So I wonder about, there's a bit of, I think, disingenuousness on the city's part by not saying this is what we're willing to pay, which would be basically cost to operate. If you're looking for another operation, if I am not meeting standards, I would certainly appreciate a input as part of the contract, and then I'd be I believe it's 30 days to remedy that situation.
I'll interject just for a moment, Rich.
Yes.
Just to make it clear that this meeting is not putting the airport manager on trial, or the current work status or performance of the airport manager. I think we have to be clear about that. Um, this is a technical review of the RFP. So, it's to ask the questions. And I think, as David, put it, he's looking at these documents, and what he's saying is, not for example, what he's stating that he sees, there's a lot of ambiguity here. I want more clarity. So, I just want people to understand that. So, and also you, Rich, so your input should be, taken as, technical information back to us. Um, and, and I'm hearing some of that there as well. So,
Yeah.
just so we don't gang up on Rich here.
Well, I think
And
if you want to put an RPZ proposal out to try to find out what the market is, all you really have to do is survey like airports in the area and see what they're paying for their operations, as was done not that many years ago when we modified our contract with the city. You can look
sure,
at
and
Marshfield, you could look at Mineral Point, you could look at similar airports around and see what those expenses are, what salaries might be met by an airport manager. And it isn't
correct.
unusual at all for the FBO to also be an airport manager, just to
Right.
let you know.
And to that end, that's, why we'll gather information uh for Brian, to document and to act on. So correct. Um Lindsay, you're next.
Yeah, I think just kind of seconding some of your thoughts there, Dave. I don't think anyone is coming to this conversation with the goal of like ousting you, Rich. It's just the fact of life that none of us are immortal, and I think we're looking at long term. We want to make sure that we're set up for success for a transition plan whenever that may occur, and having this in place helps with that. I think that's my perspective on why we're talking about this now.
Yeah,
If I may
I appreciate
respond,
that.
the contract is
Hang on
with
one sec,
more air.
Rich.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, hang on one sec. I want to keep this going in cycle. So I just want Charles to respond.
So uh my item is a little bit less high level than all this. But we do have just on that topic before we exit it, as a city, we are moving towards requests for proposals for more or less every conceivable thing where they might be germane. And this just fits with that trend. So I I understand that it's difficult to not see it in a personal light, but this is just a city policy that we've been moving toward in more or less every aspect of city operations. So um, I think it's appropriate for us to have the discussion. Uh, the point that I raised my hand to make was under on the airport manager contract uh, proposal submission requirements, which is item 6. The third bullet point, which is proof of insurance. When we're submitting this, Brian and Matt, do you think that a policy maximum of $9,900,999.99 uh, is the maximum possible liability that we would face since we're asking to be named as an additional insured on that policy? Or with 5 years of inflation, might we want to potentially make the policy maximum something uh, in excess of $10 million?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'd have to pull some of the other airports to see around what their coverage is. That's why I left it blank for the moment because I'm still working on that piece. I don't know from a legal perspective, Matt, if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I right as I sit here, I don't have any particular insight as to an insurance amount that might be necessary for the airport manager. Um, yeah, I prepared kind of just for this discussion about this, the overall duties and criteria and format, but had not looked into those specifics.
Okay, and then the other question I had, which is I think for the body as a whole, is um, do we want to go with a 5-year term, a 10-year term, or a 15-year term?
Yep, we can add that to our discussion as well here tonight. So let's make a note of that. I just wanted to make sure, does anybody else have any kind of follow-up comments? And I know I cut you off, Rich, but I wanted to make sure that everybody who raised their hands, raised their hands.
I think Jack's waiting to talk next.
Okay, go ahead, Jack.
I didn't want to interrupt you, Rich. Um, Thank you. I have no qualms and understand the spirit of the differences, albeit maybe the language isn't quite precise enough between the FBO contract and the airport manager's contract. You read the job description of the airport manager's contract, and it's incredibly operationally focused. And I think the one of the things this group needs to maybe wrestle with, and it's not something I don't think we solve in this RFP, in my opinion. But one of the things this group needs to wrestle with is consistent with the capital flight message. I think the frustration that you're hearing from capital flight is around um, maybe more aggressive promotion and development of certain aspects of the development plan or the airport in general. And you read the airport manager's contract, and that is not an explicit part of their accountabilities right now. There's a bullet point in there that half of it points to the implementation of some of the programs and things related to development, but is not the strategic development and champion of aspects associated with the airport's development. So that's something I think that this board would need to. Right now, we're accountable for that, and if we want to see that in future airport leadership, then I think that's something that we need to think about and how we incorporate that. My suggestion, rather than, I have no qualms with, um, from an operator's perspective, the airport manager cleans the snow, keeps the runways clear, keeps the runways in great condition, keeps the stuff working right, has fuel available when we need it. And right now, all of those boxes are checked in spades with the current airport manager. I have zero qualms about how current administration is meeting the needs according to the current job description or this description in the RFP. But I think this group needs we should, in this uh, process, maybe I think there might be an opportunity to do a more planful, maybe migration into something else. Rich, I'm not sure how you feel about a 15-year term. Um, I'd be a little reluctant to go into something like that, but something shorter and something maybe a little more planful. At some point, Rich, you're not going to want to do some of this stuff anymore. There's value in the FBO. You're going to I could see that changing hands at some point. I'm not putting thoughts or things in your head. These are my own ideas. But at some point, that's going to change ownership, and it has value, and somebody's going to be interested in that, and it's going to be a different individual. And the city, as was mentioned before in our comments, has benefited from the synergies associated with your FBO, and the operator's manager's contract, and that has value as well. I think if you put this out for RFP, you'd kill everybody on the price that would come through. So I'm not seeing the need necessarily for this. I think there's an opportunity here for this group to do a more planful, um, keep status quo for the time being and do a more planful migration at some point here. And it's up to this group to pick kind of the time frame in which we want to do it on the airport manager side.
Well, Chair, may I respond?
Yes.
Okay. The contract has always been, in my mind at least, through the corporation. And if the corporation has a 10 or 15-year renewal, any purchase of that corporation those agreements would go along with that. As per, the city would have to approve any sale. So if you're looking for continuity, what you would want, from my perspective, is to lock in that contract for a reasonable period of time. Now, my father will be 87 in November. He just sold his airplane. He's still active in what he is doing, which is teaching. I wouldn't want any hint of age discrimination to be coming in here. I'm quite capable of, or at least planning on flying for the next 20 years easily. That said, as you just pointed out, there may well be a transition. And if that transition is with the corporation, all of those, whatever was the contracts that were signed, would go with that, as opposed to, in, let's say, 5 years, having to renegotiate everything with potentially a new operator. So I would encourage the group to think long-term and think about a longer-term renewal simply for the continuity of operations, because the contracts signed are binding.
Yeah, and let's be clear, these discussions are not any hint of violating any existing contract in any way whatsoever. No, this is a working discussion and a working group to develop an RFP. So, and again, this is not a judgment of Rich or an attack on Rich or anything like that whatsoever. And I think, as you point out, Rich, yes, I think we have to be very mindful of not getting into second guessing a person's thoughts, age, or future. We just have to really be balanced here and think of how would we want to draft a document for the city as a commission of a body of people here who have some knowledge and interest in the airport to accurately reflect the responsibilities of the manager. As far as a connection between the manager's contract and the FBO contract, I'm sure Matt Fleming can chime in, but there is no connection between the two. One is a contract for the manager, and as David Schwartz pointed out in that little limited summary table, I think on page 55 or 54, it's just there as a representation. Obviously, it lacks a lot, but the point being, let me just pull this out for example. So the airport manager contract says cut the grass, shovel the snow. Okay, now think independent of an FBO and of a manager. Look at some other airport around the state or in the area. If the manager of that airport is charged with responsibility of just cutting the grass, how are they going to do it? Now, in our case, the city owns the equipment. Okay, so the manager doesn't have to buy the equipment, maintain the equipment, or anything like that. The manager just has to see that the grass gets cut. So that person as a manager can either go outside and get on the lawnmower themselves and cut the grass. Yes. Or, and this is, I'm looking at Matt Fleming here or that manager could say, well, I'm going to pay somebody to cut the grass. You, the city of Middleton, have given me, in this case, $40,000, and I'm going to cut the grass. Now, if we really want to wrap our heads around this financially, I'm sure city staff could easily, Rich could tell easily how many acres of grass are out there that have to be mowed right now. And we could go over to any one of our contractors that we use in the city. Brian, what's the company that we use for our CDA work and things like that?
We've used a couple different ones.
Right.
Boley's one of them.
Yeah. So we could contact Bole and say, okay, we have X amount of acres out at the city of Middleton airport, and the grass needs to be cut. And we want it cut routinely, and we want, expect it to look cut. Okay. End of discussion. How much is that going to cost? Well, we've budgeted $40,000 for that right now. Am I still on track on this? Or am I taking this the wrong direction? I just want to make sure I'm not misleading people with how we're spending our money. So that's that. Now, the grass has to get cut. So I think when you look at the contract, how do we articulate that? What Rich is doing is he's taking that money and passing it through to an employee at the FBO who's cutting the grass. And I'm sure Rich could figure out how many hours a year he's spending on that and what that costs. But I suspect just snow removal and grass maintenance of the airport would be an expensive task, and $40,000 would probably get a big chunk of that would get consumed. So that's kind of my comment with respect to that. And it's kind of my guidance to you as a mission to think about, again, how do we look at these? How do we look at the manager's agreement here without getting into the FBO agreement, because that's really not for discussion tonight.
And again, David, you get a report every year for the exact number of hours that were billed for the operations and broken down into snow removal, mowing, runway light maintenance, and the rest. So I don't have to look it up. I can just give it to you. We've got it.
Oh, right, exactly. So you have those figures, and I don't know if that's an appropriate place for here to get into those kinds of details, but that's definitely something for Brian to be aware of as he thinks about how we do want a manager's agreement to look, because it is the city who owns the airport, and so it is the city who is paying someone to carry out these services, and what the capability of the amount of money we're paying right now is to accomplish all those services. And now I'd just, a final comment to it as to what, Jack mentioned in reference to the capital flight letter, how that plays into, where capital flight is saying the manager needs to be a sole, let's just call it advocate and person for, looking for growth and development of the airport. Well, that's pretty different than, overseeing the maintenance of the airport, directing someone to do that process. So yes, there's things here we need to understand and clarify. I think Kara had her hand up first, and then we'll go to David. Go ahead, Kara.
Yeah, I think what you just said actually took was some of the things I was going to point to, and what Dave brought up about the status of the airport manager contract, and also there were some things that Jack said that were we have a lot of information available right now about what it's actually costing, even though there may be overlap in what the FBO is doing that allows this to be, so economical. It would be nice to see, almost like a number point as we go and we look at what an airport manager contract would look like. And it would also give us space to see, okay, this is what it's costing now using this arrangement that we have. If that were not to be the arrangement and we had to use other sources, starting to get a sense of, because I can understand Rich's point of, if you put out something, what would the salary be? Well, one of the ways we could start to determine that is see the difference between the savings that the FBO is winding up, providing for the city. That difference could be what we could start to estimate and come up with an idea down the road of what that airport manager contract is truly worth. So my eyes are more on thinking about, okay, how about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now? Not so much like in this next renewal cycle.
Gotcha. David?
Sure, thank you. Just I think Rich, I think it was you that somebody mentioned that there are other airports that do what our airport is currently doing, which is basically having the FBO and the manager be the same individual. And I guess I'd like to have, if it's publicly available, like to have information on that. It just seems to me that to compare what others are doing, it seems to me that the economies of scale. I know, Rich, by way of example, you used the personnel from your FBO to do a lot of the maintenance work. So, hiring staff and employment, all those issues, extreme economy of scale to do it the way it's been being done. And again, whether that's Rich or anyone else who's in charge of the operations and the FBO at Maury, I think we need to consider that and look into that before we just jump in a direction just because that's how it lined up previously. So any way that we
Thank
get
you.
more information on other airports that are combining those two tasks would and the cost to do that would be beneficial.
Yeah, thank you, David. What I'll comment, interject in there because I can, and I'm the chair. It's a budget time for the city of Middleton, and the city staff are asking the Common Council, for more personnel, right? Because the city's busy, and so I've seen what the cost of a human being is, on the city, and some of the positions that even at an entry level, for example, would be at minimum 2 to 3 times right now uh, what we're paying Rich. So just those are hard facts. So as if to hire a part-time person would really be twice what we're paying Rich right now. With adequate pay and benefits and compensation. So just something to think about. Jack, go ahead.
Hey, thanks again. I just had a clarifying point. I just wanted to make sure I understood. Right now, is the airport manager, Rich, your organization? You made a comment about this being assumable. Is the contract assumable, or is it you individually?
Well, it may well be written as myself as an individual. I've always looked at it as binding to the Maury Airplane Company, the corporation, the fixed base operation. We could certainly change or make that a binding. But my point was, if we want continuity in this, rather than having to look at hiring someone, even if it's part-time, and their salary would be on top of, at best, the operations, the 40,000 that we're already using, and that's at a break-even point. Most people, when you're hiring contractors, you want to make money on what you're doing. So to give an example, I mean, what you could do very easily, and I know things have changed, but we did this research, oh gosh, probably at least 5, maybe 10 years ago, whereas the city attorney and an intern, his son, I believe, went and checked all of the oh, similar airports in the area and came up with what was going on. And basically, we came up with there really isn't a standard anymore. But we have a very good location. Therefore, there is a possibility the FBO can actually make money here operating without subsidies. Most airports that aren't in this location, like Mineral Point or whatever, they hire the airport or the FBO to be the manager to help subsidize and keep that program in. So that's just being the reality of it. But yes, as David said, to hire even a half-time person to manage, then they're not going to still be the only people, the one person that's uh, mowing the grass and or doing all the plowing. And you've got the equipment maintenance, which city pays for, and the fuel that comes out. That's all part of our operation budget. So yeah, you're looking at quite a different level of funding, one that I don't know is sustainable unless the city wants to start putting money into a non-lapsing fund. Again, I care a great deal about this airport. It's family. And I think the best thing to do would be to, lock me into a contract or the Maury Airplane Company into a contract that would be binding as to whoever we end up selling the business, they'd have to abide by. That's my point.
Thank you very much, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
Mr.
Brian,
Chair?
is your hand up?
Yep, sorry.
Okay.
So I'm mindful of time here, and I just want to recap
Okay.
what I've heard. So it sounds like there's some additional pieces of information that the commission would like to get in terms of cost of operations for the airport, not just our airport, but also similarly situated airports across the state to get a sense of, what that is. So I can work on trying to get that information and bring it back to the commission for your further consideration, if that would be helpful.
Sure. I appreciate you bringing that to a point. Yeah, commissioners, we could move on from this. Does anybody, before we move on, does anybody feel that some points haven't been brought up to Brian to document here and to look into? Okay. And again, Rich, I just want to reiterate here, this is not putting anybody on trial. I mean, this is really about this commission exploring what the document needs to look like and what it needs to reflect. So, thank you. Okay, so we're not going to make any decisions on the RFP tonight, other than a continuance for investigation and information. And Brian, we're not under any time constraints yet.
I mean, no, again, as I mentioned before, this current contract runs through December 31 of 2026.
Okay.
So I mean, from just a pure contract standpoint, no, but I'm mindful of comments that were made at this meeting and the previous meeting about just whatever decision is made, whether you extend the current contract that exists today, or you decide to go out for RFP to see what else is out there. That either way, the request to staff as much transition time as possible. So that's the only driving factor. But again, I think the questions that were raised tonight are important enough that we want to make sure we have that information before the commission, moves forward with any sort of recommendation.
Okay, when you say extend the current contract today,
yeah, let me put a fine point on it. Again, the reason why I brought this RFP for you to consider is because the current contract as it reads today has an end date of December 31, 2026. It provides
Correct.
no
Got
other guidance to staff, the council, airport
Yep.
commission on what to do when you get to that date of December 31, 2026. So
Okay.
the commission and council have to decide what path you want to take. You can either decide to extend this contract for another set of years with Mr. Maury and the Maury Airplane Company. That's totally fine. That is a policy choice that the airport commission and council can make. And alternatively, you could decide that you wanted to go to RFP to see what's out there. Both of those paths are fine. It's just the reason I brought something to you to talk about is because the contract doesn't have any other language, which is different than the FBO one, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. There's language in the FBO contract that provides a pathway
Yep.
for basically an
Gotcha.
automatic extension. That does not exist in the airport manager contract as it's written today.
Okay, thanks. You articulated that perfectly. So commissioners, based on Brian's comment, do you want to continue a discussion of this, or do you want to direct the city to say, no, at this point in time, we want to leave the current contract alone as a manager and continue to extend it out, or we want at this time continue to explore and review this process? Okay. You want to continue to keep exploring this then as a body? I don't think we need a vote on it. It's just, I want to make sure we're clear on that.
Yeah, no, so as I mentioned, I'll try to bring back more information at the next possible opportunity.
Okay. So I think as a commission, let's commit to meetings on this, even if we have a meeting for one agenda item, so we can get this flushed out and get it done. Okay. Fair enough.
Fair enough.
I wouldn't ask for a vote on that, but I guess what I'm saying is the chair, then I want us to do our diligence and keep this moving. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. On to item number 2. And as Brian pointed out, item number 2 is review, discussion, and potential action on a 5-year option for renewal of the fixed-based operator contract. And Brian, I'll let you articulate that, because this is very different than our previous discussion, and not to be confused.
Yeah.
Where
yep.
this, Thank
Yeah,
you.
so great. So yeah, this contract is written differently, and again, I wasn't with the city when this was written, so I don't have any insight as to why they were written the way that they were. But this fixed base operator contract does have language in it that allows the operator, which is Maury Airplane Company, to within the period of the existing contract, to request, for lack of better phrasing, the ability to renew the contract for an additional 5-year period. Mr. Maury, representing Maury Airplane Company, has done that. Has formally asked to have this 5-year period extended from, again, this contract ends in December 31 of 2026, extended to December 31 of 2031. And so that's the draft that's written that way. It reflects basically everything is the same in the FBO contract, other than just changing the language in terms of when the contract ends. The council or the airport commission and council have a couple different options. This one is complicated a little bit by the Middleton Area Development Corporation, which is the owner of the terminal building, also has to sign off on this FBO contract extension, which they're aware that they need to do that, and we'll be reviewing that. My suggestion is, if the commission was interested in having a conversation about additional years of the FBO contract, meaning just like we talked about before, should it be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? That's fine, but I would recommend that if you were going to suggest that you offer it in multiple motions, meaning because of the way that this current contract is written, you should offer a motion that the contract be extended for 5 years. In addition, if you want the city council to consider extending it beyond that 5 years to another time frame, be it 10 years or whatever, do that as a separate motion, because again, there's another entity that needs to weigh in and sign off. So I would hate to have you choose one option and then have that not pass the muster it needs to pass, and then we're left with no options because the 5-year was also not approved. So you're welcome to discuss whatever time frame you would like for the fixed based operator contract, but I would suggest that anything beyond the 5 years be a separate motion in addition to extending this one 5 years.
Okay. And then one thing I want to point out, Brian, is that we are obligated, because we did extend a new term rate for the SASL with Capital Flight. And that is how many years? Refresh my memory.
That was 15 years.
Right. So we have to we have to show we have to be impartial in these contracts. So the FBO contract would have to be 15 years. Okay. So I guess the question then is, and I think in fairness to Rich here, let me just lay some simple ground rules, and Brian, let me know what you think. One, as Rich sits here tonight, if he puts an FBO hat on, I would say Rich could make an opening statement if he would like, stating anything he'd like, about justification or anything along those lines for wanting the current extension. And I would consider that, his comment with respect to that. But then as a commission, once we get into the discussion of this, if we have technical questions, I think it would be fair to ask Rich technical questions about the FBO and operation. But I would caution Rich at that point to refrain from, well, lobbying or anything, that would be viewed as that. So the commission can kind of view this objectively as possible. So with that in mind, I would say, Rich, do you have anything that you would like to say at the opening of this?
Yes, David, and I appreciate your wishing to keep this on a more technical basis afterwards. The Moore Airplane Company has a great need to have to know precisely what our future is. If we are not going to get an extension for the fixed base operator agreement, the time remaining between now and December 31 of 2026 is inadequate for us to try to move operations anywhere. And so that was my request. I requested this early in the year, and now we're getting to it, and that's fine. I understand that is what is I am perfectly content to, as Brian pointed out, go with the 5-year extension as one vote, and then I would encourage us to consider on the fairness level, which is part of our grant assurances, to run with a greater extension. Now, that is up to the Airport Commission to make recommendations and the City Council to ratify one way or the other. But what I would love to see tonight is a commitment to at least a 5-year extension. And again, that I believe is what should be voted on initially, with perhaps a proviso to look into evening this up to a fairness level between us and Capital Flight. That's basically all I have to say about it. And I know the meeting's running along, so I'll be happy to answer any technical questions further, but I don't, and I'm open to questions at the moment.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any thoughts? Charles, please.
Yeah, so I actually have the same insurance related question with the contract as I did in the RFP. This contract sets it at $5 million. So Brian and Matt, I assume your answer is the same as it was when I asked this question about insurance the last time.
Yeah, I don't have any information that would be different than the previous contract.
Well, if I
Right,
may,
should have been looked at. So I'm a little bit more comfortable if this is probably in the range, because I know this had been recently looked at, but not for this particular extension.
Yeah, I'd be more comfortable extending this if we had a firm answer on that.
Dave, you'll be next. I know this is actually a technical question Rich can answer, because I know in the past you've gone out and shopped for this kind of insurance, and there's some technical, you can kind of add some technical information to that, Rich.
Well, we can go back and review when Capital Flight renewed their SASO. And Matt said essentially he couldn't get $5 million worth of liability. Could
Yeah.
not possibly. It wasn't available. I don't know what the market is right now, but it is unlikely that we'll be able to get anything more than what Capital Flight was available. And I believe that was a 2 million policy. And requiring us to do so may be considered, well, I'm not going to go into that. But I don't know that we can come up with a $10 million liability. I don't think anyone writes that policy. So you can ask for it, but if we can't get it, I don't know what we can do about it.
Right. And that's all I simply wanted to point out was that when these businesses went out and shopped for insurance, um, they were all given a consistent answer of this is the maximum amount the industry has to offer, the end. So, okay, David Schwartz. Oh, you're muted, David.
Yeah, maybe a question for Matt. I'm looking at the fixed base operator agreement that we're looking at right now for 5 years, and it references an option. Are there any qualifications to that option, or is it an absolute choice by Maury Airplane Company to exercise their option? And if it is, then the issue of increasing the insurance for the 5 year period under this agreement shouldn't be an issue. It perhaps is an issue if we extend beyond 5 years, but if it's an absolute option without the right of the city to require more terms, then it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's certainly his right to request it. There is language in there that suggests that there are terms that can be negotiated. So there is a little ambiguity in there, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change the insurance terms without a compelling reason to do so. I mean, I think there's an obligation to negotiate any new terms on good faith and that there be, some change circumstance requiring an alteration of those terms. So, but I don't think it's necessarily an absolute option to extend all terms as they are because it does have language in there um, that allows some negotiation over the extension terms.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, I just had a question with regards to, there's been mention of a 15-year contract with Capital and being a new member of the board here. I'm just kind of curious, or the commission, sorry. So there was mention of a SASO or something like that. And I just wanted to clarify that, like a 15-year. I'm just wanting some more clarification on what exactly is going on with Capital Flight and just so in relation to contracts between the city and businesses out at the airport. So is there any more, can you provide any more clarification on that part?
Yeah, a SASO is a specialized aviation services operations contract. It's different than fixed-based operator. There are some overlapping things that FBO and SASO can do, but again, I'm not in the aviation community, so correct me if I misstate anything, but generally speaking, SASO is for we'll call it aviation flight training, sales, those type of activities. Fixed base operator contract has those opportunities plus fuel sales and some other things in it. So that's because the fuel fixed base operator contract runs with the Maury Airplane Company currently. The SASO is another avenue for someone to provide those sort of avionics type services.
And that SASO with Capital Flight is currently or has been renewed for a 15-year period?
That's correct.
Okay. So extending beyond the 5 years would not be out of line or anything like that for Maury, for the fixed-based operator contract.
From
No,
just a
but it would
pure,
probably, oh, sorry, Brian.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, no, I mean, you're extending an option. We can do anything with this contract if the parties want to do it to agree. Although, I think extending it for 15 years versus the five that are suggested in the option certainly opens up the universe of issues upon which you might want to negotiate. I don't know if we're as need to be as narrowly focused. So the big reason for the 15 years for the Sasso agreement was, as Matt Holfeld explained, that there were investments that he wanted or needed or some combination thereof to make. And for lending purposes, if he didn't, only a 5-year agreement would not allow him to get the financing needed to make those improvements. So that's the idea behind that.
Okay.
I think he wanted something even longer, but we resolved to 15.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So Brian, just thinking out loud here, two motions. One motion would be right here and now to extend to the motion would be to allow Maury Inc. to exercise its option for a 5-year extension. That would be one motion. The other motion would be at the end of the 5 years to change the FBO agreement to 15 years. That would be another motion, correct?
You could, I mean, not to complicate things, but so the way I'm hearing that is motion to
Well, I want to
extend.
go back to your original suggestion, or so we don't create any confusion for this body or the Common Council.
Yeah. So yeah, the primary motion would be, under the terms of the current contract, to extend it 5 years to 2031. And then the council and airport commission could consider a secondary motion if they so chose to extend it for an additional, we'd call it 10 years, to match the 15-year Sasso agreement. So it'd be a separate, and again, the reason why I'm suggesting that it needs to be in part two motions, because again, there's, another entity beyond the city council, namely the Middleton Area Development Corporation, also has to sign off on any extension. So you want to make sure you're matching the contract, but then if the MADC is also okay with the 10-year extension beyond that 5 years, then the council and MADC can agree to that as well, if they so choose.
Right. And I mean, I want to do what is going to be obviously the cleanest and make absolutely the most amount of sense with respect to that. And then I'll let you talk, Jack. I guess the question is, how would this body or the city want to then say, look at the future FBO agreement and simply make sure it reflects the city and this body's needs out of its FBO? Hypothetically speaking, what if, the city wants to adopt an agreement with an FBO where the FBO also does take on some airport management, or take on airport management as it was mentioned in maybe other airports are doing? How do we leave the door open for that, so we, allow the exercise of extension now, but then moving forward, make sure we have parity with a new 15-year FBO, but at any time you renew an agreement, isn't it subject to sort of renegotiation at that time with anybody? I don't care if it's the FBO or a SASO or someone else the city engages with, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, both parties are,
Okay.
are always free to amend that.
Okay, so then I don't have to obsess on that right now. Okay.
No, but it's good to flag that for consideration.
Yeah, I mean, it would make good business sense. Jack, please.
Sorry, you just made my my point. I guess I'm still To my earlier question, wondering, are we voting on the extension of the airport manager's agreement here now?
No,
Does Maury Airplane Company own the
no,
airport
no,
management contract?
no, not at all. This is not about the airport manager right now. This is specifically the FBO as a business, the services they provide. You know, think of as Brian just stated, you know, what a SASO does
Matt, is
and
that
what,
correct? Matt Fleming, is that correct?
Oh, that right now we are just considering, yeah, I mean, they are two contracts and they are technically with two different entities. The manager's agreement
Okay.
is with Rich personally. The FBO is with Maury Airplane Company. So they can and should be considered separately.
yep,
I'm sorry to keep beating on this. I agree with the
that's all right.
motion, by the way. I think we need to be consistent with what we've done with Gapflight and the other SASOs or FBOs on the field.
Correct.
I just want to be clear on
Yeah,
what we're talking about here.
exactly. Right, exactly. And I think the consistency is what's key. Um, uh, and Rick has, as a FBO, um, can exercise a 5-year extension. So the question is, do we want to do that? Okay, that's one vote. And then the other one is, as Brian recommended, and I'll let Brian phrase the language of that second motion because this is what would be important moving forward in the interrelationship with MADC. And is this body okay with that in right now in draft discussion, or do we want to add more to it or change it? And if not, or if anybody has any other thoughts, you know, put them out right now. Otherwise, I think we can. Um, and I'll just touch base with Matt Fleming one more time here. Matt, um, does that sound like we're on track in terms of phrasing motions properly? So when these do make it to Common Council, you know, we're prepared for at least a clear discussion on it.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of first giving approval to the 5-year
Mhm.
extension and then alternately ask for consideration of the fifth or an additional 10 years or total of 15, I guess, however you want to phrase it. But yeah, I think if you do
Okay.
those as separate
I just
motions.
want to make sure we wouldn't get hung up with Common Council if we say, well, an addition of 10 years to the 5 years, because what we're trying to demonstrate here is that the SASO agreement is a 15-year agreement. And so the FBO needs to simply reflect the same fairness. And for Brian to um, make sure it's okay with MADC. So what do you think, Brian?
Yep, I think you've explained it well, so I just need the commission to make those motions.
Okay. Well, the first motion would be a motion to, as requested by the Maury Incorporated, to currently exercise a 5-year extension for their FBO agreement. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Sorry,
Aye.
sorry, before you do that,
Oh,
I need
I'm
a
sorry.
motion and a second first.
Second.
Oh, second, sorry.
Sorry, sorry, who made that first?
I'll second.
Cara did.
Carr made the
Jack
motion.
tried to. Yeah.
Carr made motion and Young made second. Okay, thank you.
All right. Sorry, everybody. All those in favor for the first motion, please say aye.
I
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we've got that done. All right. The second motion would be then at the expiration of the 5-year extension, the new for the renewal term of the FBO agreement, it would be to a 15-year term, not
Be a total of 15 years, so it'd be
a
5 years
total
on
of
top
50.
of.
Yep. a total of 15 years. Yep, because the word total is very important. And that would be it. Correct, Brian? Would that work? Using the word total?
Yep.
Okay, Matt, you okay with the word total? All right, so I'll reread the motion and then we'll look for someone to second that. So the motion would be at the expiration of the Maury's, we don't have to say 5 years, just at the expiration of the Maury FBO agreement, we would then be renewing that or extending that agreement for a total of 15 years. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lindsay. All right. All those in favor for the motion as stated, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, everybody. All right. Item number 3, consideration and potential action on a proposed 2026 through 2030 airport capital budget and 2026 operating budget. Brian, please bring us up to speed.
Yeah, thank you. So the information that's in your packet is the proposed budget for the airport. Similar as we've done in past years, there's not a
Oh,
ton
let
of
me interrupt you for 1 sec. Put that up on the screen, Brian. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
There's not a ton of variance as in years past, particularly on the operation side. That kind of those are the parameters that we have to work with presently. So that's kind of what you're seeing for the operation side. For the capital side, and we can always come back if need be. On the capital side, again, these are projects that were previously in out years in previous capital improvement plans for the airport. This is based in part on the Bureau of Aeronautics capital improvement plan as well. Really, the main projects that they're looking at for funding assistance for us are things like replacement of the automated weather observing system that we've been talking about for a couple of years, replacement of some of the exterior gating at the airport, the reconstruction of the taxiway and the reconstruction of the main east-west runway. And again, to be clear, in the configurations that infrastructure exists in now, so the same parameter, same configuration of that runway, kind of the bigger capital project there. And then some other items. We had talked in previous meetings about a desire to have a EV charging facility at the airport. We had applied for Dane County Charge Up grant and included the airport as one of the possible sites in the community for that. The airport property was not selected as one of the sites that Dane County would fund as part of the grant program. So I put it in the capital budget as an item. And again, we've got some, I guess I'd call it a EV in decarbonization technology language that was approved in our most recent petition to the BOA. So, we can have a conversation with the BOA in future months about whether or not EV charging infrastructure would be a BOA funded type of activity. So those are kind of the main things. There also are some second phases of some projects that were funded in our previous BOA petition that are currently being scoped now that have not yet started. So the drainage study was one that we talked about last year. The implementation phase of that drainage study would be not in 26, but in 27 or 28 for implementation of that, as would be the actual implementation of the new AWOS system as well. So again, trying to mirror the feedback that we got from the BOA in terms of capital projects. Happy to take any questions that you might have.
And hopefully this information isn't of any surprise. This is kind of the stuff we've been talking about, working on for quite some time. There's really nothing new on here. Brian, I guess my only question would be, And I think we probably have the flexibility to do this with the BOA, with emerging technologies, for example, um, electric, like an electric zero turn mower. Um,
Yeah, and
would we,
that's a great question. So I did include a mower in there, and I put in my narrative notes that the city has adopted a sustainable purchasing policy that we help we use it when we're making decisions on big ticket equipment. At the time that I wrote this, I didn't have a spec for an EV type mower. I have gotten a spec from our Parks Department on something that they've used in the past. So I at least have something to start with if we go down the road of looking to actually purchase a mower. There are some EV options that we can take a look at as part of this.
okay. And for something like that, we wouldn't need special charging infrastructure. Literally, you just plug it in when you're done mowing. Oh, Rich is nodding his head. Okay. So gotcha. All right. So that answers my question there. And I think the other thing, and I'll just mention this to the commission, and I've talked to Brian and Bill Burns about it, consistently. Um, what we're responsible for, and what obviously our current funds are capable of handling. How this projects out to the future, and this is just something we're going to have to be very mindful of. Our income is fixed, and our expenses are not fixed. So even though the grants are quite generous, I think we just have to be mindful of where we're at, what we're capable of funding, and what we may have to work with the city and the council to, if we need additional funding, from maybe a TIF source or something like that. So, does anybody have any specific questions to Brian? Charles?
Yeah, this isn't as much a question as it's a outward communication about this budget thing. Um, there are a lot of people, especially in my part of town, who benefit more than anyone else in the city from having the automated weather observing system at the airport, since it gives us an incredibly precise forecast um, and weather information. And so I do think that when we're talking about this budget uh, at council, and when I'm talking about this budget to my neighbors and constituents, but as a city especially, we should communicate out the benefits of having that particular item.
Yeah, I think the data from these automated weather systems is also captured by National Weather Service. So it's all aggregated. It actually plays into the whole network of our national infrastructure of knowing, weather and weather systems. Predictive weather is a different process, different observation system that our airport doesn't provide.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, I should have been more precise with my language.
Yeah, it's pilots are concerned with the weather when they're landing, and maybe the weather of that day to know whether they can take off and land. So, okay. Rich, the timing seems right from your perspective with the AWAS replacement. I really that seemed to be one of our most urgent short-term needs.
Well, it's reached its useful life, and then it's working its way beyond it. When we had that flood, there was equipment that had to be replaced. That was quite a while ago, and even then, they were saying it's getting to the point where it needs to go. I think my concern or my interest really got piqued because the state was having has a program to replace this aging infrastructure, and at the time, and this was 2 years ago, it was going to be at I think of a very advantageous level, maybe 5% city share, if that. So that's what I wanted to make sure that we were in line for those programs. I have no idea where they're at right now. But yes, it's 20 years old about, and I don't think it was forecast to last much more than that.
Okay, well, right now the city projected share is $1,500.
Well, that's a
Uh,
deal.
yeah, that's the deal. So if if we get that, then yippee-yi-yay. Brian, would you like a motion from us to approve the capital budgets as presented?
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
All right, so the motion in front of us to the commission is to approve the proposed capital budget for 2026 to 2030 airport capital budget and 2026 operating budget.
I'll
That
second.
is the motion. Thank you, Charles. You seconded it? I'm sorry, I was looking down.
Yeah, I
All right.
seconded.
Okay. All right, everybody. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next item, discussion regarding the B cycle and potential e-bike rental at the airport. And you're asking yourself, why is this here? The city is investigating. I want to make sure I'm in the proper order. Yep. The city is investigating B-cycle infrastructure. Madison has it, and cities like Middleton are starting to also look at and putting in this infrastructure. And I'm bringing this to the commission tonight specifically to think about it at the airport. So the Common Council and the city are going to have a discussion about it in a broader sense for Middleton. What I'm looking here tonight is to get a sense of, do we want to say, hey, to the city, think about this in the broader project. There needs to be something at the airport. And let me see whose hands are up here for some input or thoughts. Rich, and then Ryan.
I would say yes, please, to that. We have the Pheasant Branch Conservancy bike trail that essentially runs right by the airport. We've got back roads that can get you into downtown Middleton without having to be over an awful lot of areas. I think it would be a huge benefit to the community and to the city. We would have people flying in here to run downtown for lunch on those bikes. No doubt about it. So.
Yeah. Ryan.
Yeah, I would just second that because I've actually sought out airports that have bikes. For example, airport support groups have bikes up at Ephraim Gibraltar in Door County and at Washington Island that I've actually used myself, purposely going to a place for using those bikes and then going into the local area, commercial area. So I don't know if that would actually bear out in Middleton, but I would support that as well.
Okay, great. Commissioners, anybody else like to chime in? So here's what I was thinking from a financial standpoint. Because this came up in Common Council, right? How do we pay for it? So the city has to pay for a portion of this infrastructure. The rest of the money is going to come through a grant program. But here's the thing about the airport. In other cities, the Department of Tourism has chipped in and funded e-bikes. And the reason being is money spent in tourism is to attract people generally outside of 50, speaking airspeak here, 50 nautical mile radius of the community in question. And I can't think of a better example, because how do people get to the airport in airplanes? And where are those airplanes coming from? I can assure you 50 nautical miles, at a minimum, or, within that range. So, and I would imagine tourism is doing it from a driving standpoint. They're not putting a pin on a map and drawing a circle. They're really looking at people who are driving to the city. So, airplanes are coming from even a much further distance. And I guess I it's not here in this language, but what I would ask Brian then to put in here is that, can we get tourism based on this specific participation? Because tourism initially backed down to say we're not going to fund e-bike racks downtown Middleton, or an e-bike rack that's, in a place like that. Now, if we were to put an e-bike rack right in front of the Hilton Garden or right in front of one of our hotels, tourism would be more interested in doing that, because they realize people who are staying in hotels are coming to Middleton, and now there's an e-bike there, and you get on it, and just like Rich said, you make a quick hop over to our wonderful Pleasant Branch trail system, and you're in the city just like that. And then you return and go back to your hotel. So, and these stations probably can be pretty small. You can probably have a 2-bike station, at a location like the airport. So,
Yeah, we can ask the Tourism Commission for their thoughts. At the risk of, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, because if you think some of the stuff that we talk about here is complicated, the state legislation on tourism funding and what it can and cannot be used for is just as, if not more complicated. I dealt with the same question in a previous community that I served in.
okay.
Short answer is the Tourism Commission is an independent entity, can make funding decisions on how they utilize tourism funding separate from the Common Council. And it really comes down to the question of whether or not that asset or item that you're purchasing drives hotel stays. So if there can be a nexus shown between that B-cycle infrastructure and an increase in hotel stays in the community, then I think under state law, there's a better connection to say that, yes, that money can be used for that. That's a very high level explanation. It gets really into the weeds. So the short answer is yes, I'll bring that up to the Tourism Commission and we can have that conversation. But it's not as simple as, we think this is great for tourism in the city, go fund it. It's way more complicated than that, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm happy to at least throw it out there, and throw this back into the whole project and see if someone's willing to come up with some money in some way, shape, or form to get this at the airport. And the other thing is, okay, if we can't get some kind of infrastructure like that, not looking for a decision tonight, but what could the airport do to have something at the airport like that? So that's really about it. Charles.
Yeah, so I mean I feel like the connection between an airport and hotel stays is one where you're not doing too much of a stretch, depending on when an out-of-town guest flies in and what their itinerary is. They are probably staying in the hotel, and they're not taking their plane to the hotel. So I think that it wouldn't be an enormous stretch to say that the bikes, especially if we have B-cycle infrastructure in an area in addition to the airport, like the main hotel area.
Yeah, well, look where the one hotel is. I don't know the road. I just know the road that it's the road you go around to get to Costco, and the hotel is right there.
Yeah.
And if you had a mini e-bike station there and a mini e-bike station at the airport, and you had another, mini e-bike station over by the big, is it Marriott or whoever owns it? Now, I really see a really nice evolving infrastructure, because anybody who flies in, wow, they're just, they're here for overnight. they got their backpack and their stuff, and they get on that bike, they go over to the hotel. There's an e-bike station there. So that assures them the ability to get back to the airport. If they can't get back to the airport, well, then they'll have to call one of us. But yeah, Tara.
Yeah, I was going to say, and well, in addition to perhaps people flying and want to stay overnight, I mean, those of us that fly our little airplanes, we love to go place on adventures, go place and then go somewhere for lunch, go somewhere for whatever. I mean, and it's great to ride into downtown Middleton, has some amazing restaurants, and even over in Greenway Station. So there's a lot of options during the day. Just people come in and I share what Ryan said about like Door County. I mean, there are those of us who will find places where we can go explore once we get to the airport. So I would hope that tourism would see the advantage in how this, pilots eat.
Right, exactly. Jack.
No, I agree with Tara. I don't know if there's the city, if they have like a food fight group or a consortium of the restaurants or whatnot that might want to chip into something like that. I could see them sponsoring or possibly being interested in sponsoring something.
Oh, I
along
know
those lines.
Capital Brewery is interested in this.
Huh.
Capital Flight's also interested in this, by the way.
Capital Brewery complicates things. I mean, I wouldn't want to take a bike to a brewery and then have to fly back out, but I mean,
Oh
can't do
yeah.
that.
Okay. Yeah, let's but well, right. Other restaurants.
But
Yeah.
there you have the hotels and the overnight. So
Well, if it's yeah, right. If it's 8 hours bottle to throttle, then they can just ride the bike over to the hotel and everything's good. So right. Um yeah, I think Brian gets the message. Brian knows the infrastructure of the city and where the businesses are and where the hotels are. I think it's just throwing this out there when it becomes a discussion or an option for common council to look at from a budgeting standpoint. You know, where do we want this vendor to start putting these stations in, and can we make a case to have one at the airport? Um, and I mean, I'm not assuming how my local alders vote, but I mean, I think, there's support from a couple alders on a common council that would support something like this. So, okay. Um, Brian, do you want a motion from this to simply state that the airport commission supports B-cycles?
Sure, I think
Or
that would be sufficient.
yeah, I mean, you want to just leave the language of e-bike rental in there? Does that help people? Okay, would anyone like to make that motion? I
I'll
won't
make that
read it.
motion.
Okay, go ahead and read it.
Oh,
All
you
right.
read it for me. I'll make the motion.
Oh, okay. All right. So the motion before us is to investigate and promote and see if we can get a B-cycle and or e-bike rental at the airport. Okay. Do I have a second? Jack? All right. Thank you, Jack. All those in favor, please say aye.
I
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, everybody. Item number 5, discussion on airport policy for using the airport as a community space for events and whatnot. This was brought to us by Charles, and I'll let Charles go ahead and start that off.
Yeah, so actually, Dave, because we're going into the second hour of this meeting,
Sure.
I'm comfortable deferring consideration of this item.
Okay, no problem.
So that we can move through the agenda.
All right. Commissioners, are you okay with deferring this? Brian, we don't need a vote on that, just defer. Okay. All right. Thank you, Charles. Item number 6, discussion on aviation activity viewing area. This was brought to us by Rich. Rich, would you like to start that discussion?
As soon, there we go, David. Again, this is I think we have a space. It's just east of the terminal. There's a picnic table or two out there, a bike rack, and a couple monuments. I would love to see uh, basically a small pavilion or a shade and rain fly set up out there to cover that. Uh, we see a lot of families come by with young children. We see middle-aged children. We see people just come out and eat their lunch at these tables. But it would be nice, and I believe honestly that we come up with independent financing to do this. It wouldn't have to come out of the airport commission funding, but it would be nice to have direction. Would the commission be in favor of having a more semi-permanent structure out there?
Got it. The only thing I would say is, we have the airport master plan. The airport master plan identifies spaces for continual growth and development at the airport in and around the FBO area.
Mhm.
And we would just have to be cautious of anything that we would do because, what's in the airport master plan has really right of, uh, of development. So when I looked at, go ahead, Rich, I just, that space next to the FBO could be developed. So that means anything we put there would have to be moved.
Yeah, and that's quite true. But again, every hangar on the airport is subject to the same thing as part of their land lease. It could easily, I don't know, if the EA chapter or the Friends of Charlie 29 or whatever else wants to lease that facility for $1 a year and put up a shade pavilion with the provision that yes, it may have to be removed, just like any other land lease has. I don't see any issue with it. Don't even really see the need to lease the space, but if any one organization puts it up, they just have to sign an agreement that yes, we know that this is subject to being removed, had there be any projects approved for expansion or improvement on the facility.
Gotcha. Okay. Understood. Charles?
I think Kara had her hand up
Well,
before I raised mine.
go ahead, she said.
Okay, I was just going to ask Matt if he agreed with Rich's interpretation of the airport's rights in the situation where we allowed another organization like CU29 or some other group of people to put up a pavilion. And if not, or if yes, but what would make you most comfortable?
Yeah, I don't know if I have an answer to that, to be honest with you.
Okay. Well,
yeah, something I might want to give a little thought to.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'd love
that's
to have a
fine.
pavilion there so I can take my son to watch the planes land, and my other son when he's a little bit older.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that our bases are covered legally speaking before we
Yeah, it doesn't
voice.
strike me as yeah, it's something I haven't really thought about a lot before. So I guess I'd want to give it a little thought before giving an answer.
Sure. Gotcha. Carl.
Yeah, all I want to say at this point is everything everybody just said was what I was going to say. So I support all of the input there.
Yeah. Rich.
Yeah, the only reason I mentioned a land lease is that all the hangar land leases have the verbiage already established in that the city retains the right to take this property if there is going to be an expansion or improvement on the airport that would require it. So the verbiage is already in place. I don't know that they need a land lease, but again, that's something that's already set with our land leases out here. And that was actually a requirement of the FAA for any land lease on the airport.
Sure, gotcha. Okay. Well, we can, I know it's a long meeting. You know, the idea is out there. We can bring this back for discussion if, and especially if somebody, if others at the airport approach Rich, you know, like a local chapter or friends group, and they're, you know, interested in wanting to explore putting, you know, a shelter, you know, so people can sit underneath the picnic table or something like that. Charles?
Yeah, I'd actually like to move to direct the city attorney to develop a land lease for that area for the purpose of uh, erecting a covered pavilion-like structure. Um,
Yeah.
and that way we can discuss it at the next meeting. And
Yeah, the only thing I would point out is he's going to have to familiarize himself with the master plan and understand what this what the space to the east of the FBO is also identified as. Just so everybody's clear that in the master plan, the space to the east of the FBO is identified as developable, as space that can be developed. And so if someone comes along, you know, with a proposal to do something there, you know, we're talking about revenue generating opportunities for the airport, you know, and business development. So where you can't, they wouldn't be able to build outside the fence. So outside the fence, that is city space. Inside the fence is zoned as AIR. I think I'm on the right track, right, Brian? Basically, yeah. So inside the fence, it's specific zoning for explicit air, you know, aviation support and use. Outside that fence, it's city space where you can sit at a picnic table and watch airplanes or do whatever you want within reason. Okay, city will investigate this. No actions needed on the commission. We won't make any
We had a
decisions.
motion from Commissioner
Oh.
Charles. I don't know if there was a
So
second to
is that a
motion.
motion? Does that need to be a motion, I guess, is the question? To simply ask,
I'd
yeah.
volunteer, I volunteer that it should be.
Oh, okay. So Charles, restate your motion, please.
my motion was to direct the city attorney to develop a suitable land lease for the construction of a pavilion-like structure for the purpose of airport viewing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Matt, this is really broad, but I want to make sure that you have as much discretion as possible.
Okay. All right. All those in favor?
One second.
As-
Who had the second?
sorry.
Was it Commissioner Young? Did you second?
I'll second it.
All right. Okay, all those in favor of the motion as put forth by Charles and seconded by Jack, please say aye.
I
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Okay, and item number 7 is just really a review. There's no discussion. It's we did this last year. I guess the thing is there any input for Brian or the body on the review of the 2024 Wisconsin airport rates and charges survey from the BOA? I reviewed it. What I would say is, and I did go out to the BOA, Brian. I can't find this at the BOA. or a copy of it, but I think it would be good to have on our city website. Yeah, so that would be my one ask out of this. Jack?
I was going to make the same point. I think it would be great to disseminate this further. Probably more valuable to other pilots and aviation users than anybody else. And to me, it just felt like Middleton Airport was where it needed, kind of where they should be, from pricing perspective and services perspective, amongst all the other its peer group.
Right, and
Wish jet fuel was cheaper, but I understand where it is.
uh, that's right. We spent a lot of time talking about leaded and unleaded fuel, and you don't even use it.
Doing my part.
Thank you. Well, next you'll be consuming SAF fuel.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a valuable piece of information. I think it's good. It's a nice comparative tool to look at other airports, what they're doing for the respondents of that survey. I personally just find it useful to look at and review. And it helps me in, forming discussions and when we're even here as a body. All right. Brian, there's nothing you need from us on this, just
Nope.
review and acknowledgement. All righty. Item number 8, just our standing
David?
agenda. Yeah, I'm sorry, Kara.
I just was going to say, if it goes up on the website, it might be useful in the beginning just to have an introduction that Middleton Municipal Airport Maury Field is a large general aviation. I had to scroll all the way to the bottom to figure out what we are. That way, it just kind of cuts to the chase. If people were going to scroll through it and make comparisons, they could see that, oh, we're in the large GA category.
Sure. Brian will get on that. Thank you. Our standing discussion on unleaded fuel. The only really update I had was recently Swift announced that their 100R fuel did receive ASTM approval under the current restricted model list. So what does that mean? It means that, well, their fuel can still only be used in the aircraft specified, very similar to an STC, but the difference is their fuel has gone through the ASTM process. And the other thing I have to pass on is that VP Racing, their fuel is called the UL 100E as an Echo, and it is not following that process. They are adhering to the FAA's own process, PAF, PAFI, Piston Aviation Fuel Initiative. And out at the Eagle website, they actually have kind of a dynamic link you can click on. And bottom line is there's 6 metrics that are being applied to this fuel for review by the FAA. Of those 6 metrics, they're anywhere in between 19 and 42% complete. So I didn't see any other updates regarding the FAA policy specific to the PAFI process that they referenced, dated March of 2023. So that's all I got. So really kind of things are status quo. Not a lot's happening other than very slow progress. And as you all know, we, as we've stated on our website, UL 94 fuel will be available at our airport if it can be obtained at a marketable price, which I know Rich is keeping an eye on and simply isn't able to get, right? Okay. Any questions for Rich or anybody on this? All right. Brian? Review and acceptance of the airport finances. If you'd want to throw it up there on the screen, give us an overview.
Again, pretty straightforward with our finances. There's not a lot of variation month to month, and we'll continue to update the commission if anything changes. And our finance department kind of gives us an update at the end of every month. So I'll keep the commission in the loop.
Yeah, and I don't know, Brian, if and Rich, if you could think about Capital Flight asked that maybe we at least provide this information during our financial review. What fuel volume is at the airport? So we're not obviously asking for any proprietary information from your businesses as to, you know, what profits are or not profits, but we know what the city makes from fuel. So if we would at our meeting to state the number of fuel flowage at each airport commission meeting.
Yep, we can do it.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any thoughts or input regarding finances and anything that I just said or comments to it? Okay. Well then, everybody, I want to thank you. I know it's been a long meeting, and let's plan on a meeting next month then, so we can keep moving along on the RFP. If anybody has any future agenda items, certainly happy to make note of those now to Brian to add. We could, Brian, then throw back into the next meeting discussion on airport policy for using airport as a community space. And Brian will always give us a petition update and things like that. And I think, commissioners, anything else you'd like us to go through at the next meeting? Questions, clarifications about airport policy, airport operations, city policy operations, things like that. Ask the big questions and we'll get the answers. Okay.
From an administrative standpoint, would that be November 6th?
Right. That'll be the first Tuesday of November. Let's look at the calendar real quick, Brian. How is that? How is
Yep.
the first
That would be
Tuesday?
November 6th.
I'm Thursday. Sorry,
Yep,
Thursday.
November
Sorry
6th.
about that. It's a long day. Tuesday, Thursday. It's all the same. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, David.
Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, one more point. Last meeting, we mentioned, and Brian would bounce back to the city on discussion and analysis, preliminary analysis of some of the development-related initiatives, maybe an update, just and maybe schedule on some of those initiatives.
Yeah, I'm trying to work with Mead Hunt to figure out how to scope that request. So as soon as I've got a better handle on what that could look like, I'll give you an update.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Brian will make note to provide an update on that. Anybody else? Okay, everybody. Well, thank you for your patience and time tonight. And with that, we stand adjourned. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Right, guys.